Hello, welcome to this nutshell video on individualized education programs, IEPs. The IEP is created by a federal education law called the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the IDEA. And the IDEA says that students with disabilities have the right to a free, appropriate public education, FAPE. This may not seem like a big deal, but before the original version of this law was passed in 1975, students didn't have the right to a public education, and often students with disabilities didn't get an education at all. So the law has lots of rules and regulations that the districts must follow. There are federal rules and there are state rules. And parents have a lot of rights in this process. I encourage you, when you get a copy of your parent rights, to read them, ask questions, try to understand them. Because when parents understand their rights, then they can come together with the school and sit at the table as a partner in their children's education. And when parents are partners with the schools for the benefit of their students, students do better, the outcomes are better. So the IEP is a written plan that explains the special education and related services that a student is going to receive. It starts with an evaluation, but even before the evaluation, there's some things that have been happening. So a student is struggling, and there have been interventions that have been put in place to help a struggling student. And typically, these interventions are put in place, they're tweaked a little bit to try to help a student make progress. And when a student is not making adequate progress, then that's when the school can refer the child to special education for an evaluation for services. Typically, those referrals happen from the school, but sometimes the referral comes from the parent, and that's a separate video. So eligibility includes having an educational disability under the law, under the IDEA. And the IDEA has categories of eligibility, and every single one of these categories has its own criteria. And it's important that you understand the difference between educational disabilities and fitting into one of the categories of eligibility and a medical diagnosis of a disability. Medical doctors diagnose medical conditions. Schools do not diagnose medical conditions. Just like doctors don't decide whether a student meets the category of eligibility for an educational disability. They're two separate processes. One is education and one is healthcare. But it can be kind of confusing because some of the words are the same. So for example, autism is a category of eligibility that has its own educational criteria in order to qualify under that category. But autism is also a medical condition diagnosed by medical doctors using medical criteria. And so a student could have a medical diagnosis of autism, but not meet the educational criteria of autism. And just like a student might meet the educational criteria of autism, but not have the medical diagnosis of autism. And if a student, some students meet more than one category of eligibility. So if a student with autism doesn't meet that category, he may meet the category of eligibility in another category. So I encourage you to take a look at the categories. They're on the Georgia Department of Education website. The next hurdle that you have to jump through is that once you find, yes, the student meets the educational disability, meets a category of eligibility, then the team has to get together, and parents are an important part of this team. The team has to get together and take a look at how does this disability show up at school? What is the impact of the disability on the student's educational performance? And does the impact of this educational disability create a need for specialized instruction? Because if the answer is yes, the disability creates a need for specialized instruction, then that student qualifies for an IEP, and the team will write an IEP plan. If the student doesn't need specialized instruction because the educational disability doesn't reach that point, then it doesn't mean that the student doesn't have a disability. It just means that they didn't meet the criteria for an IEP. So the student may still have a disability and may still be struggling and may qualify for support under another law, which is called a 504 plan, which will be a separate video. So once you write an IEP, then the IEP team, parents are an important part of this team, is going to meet once a year at least to review the progress. Some teams meet more than once a year, but they have to meet at least once a year. They're going to review the progress, they're going to review the goals, they're going to make decisions on how to move forward based on data. If you want to talk about this process and you're a Coweta County parent, you can reach out to me. My information is on the screen. If you're not a Coweta parent, you can go to parentmentors.org and see if you have a parent mentor in your county. There's a lot of information on the Georgia Department of Education website. You can actually read the rules and the regulations. You can also go to Parent to Parent of Georgia. They have a fabulous website and a 1-800 number that you can call for questions. Thank you. Have a good day.